everyone, welcome to the AOR Talkshow. I'm joined today by Saffzo, and we are going to give a review on China and a preview on Bahrain. It was probably one of the most exciting races I've ever seen in AOR. The qualifying was unbelievably close. The racing was also seriously close. In commentary, me and King Kodiak were really amazed how close the guys were in qualifying. Safso, I don't know if you've ever seen a qualifying grid this close, or if you have been in a grid where it's been really close at the top, even if the whole grid has been very tightly packed.
No, I've never been in a grid that close, and I've never seen a grid that close. Yeah, that's immensely close. The top two separated by nothing, and just only the whole field that qualifies separated by 8/10, I believe. That is incredibly close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like you said, the whole grid's only separated by 8 tenths, and the first five aren't even separated by a tenth of a second. It really does show how much practice these guys put into these races. It's not by accident, but they're all within a couple of attempts because they do an awful lot of practice. But we're not here to talk about the qualifying. We're here to talk about the race. Similar to last time, we're going to go through through the standings and race by team standings. First is Haas with 54 points. They've actually jumped Mercedes. Mercedes have went down quite considerably. One, because they only had one driver racing, and two, because that driver didn't actually score any points. So they're still stuck on 27. But anyway, Haas with 54 points. Good result from Formula Danny. He'd be very pleased with how he was able to sort of, he didn't quite dominate the race, but he always had a 3 second gap. Safzo, I'm sure you've been in situations where even if it's not in AOR, in racing online in general, where you yourself have either had a good lead or you've seen someone else and they're just sort of always 5 second lead. They don't let you get too close, but it always seems like they're not quite pushing 100%.
yeah. Don't really have anything to add to that.
Fair enough. So yeah, Danny won again. Really good race win. But he was very consistent. He was always setting fast laps throughout the entire race. His teammate finished down in 7th, which was Marek, who actually started on the front row, but he had issues at the start of the race. Because him and Raven had the same lap time, it put them into the same grid slot. So he had some issues at the very start, which is really unfortunate for him because he lost a ton of positions at the very beginning. So yeah, he's going to be a little bit disappointed. But nonetheless, he did a good job. He got eight, 4 points for Haas, so very valuable for his championship campaign and the Haas team. In P2, we have Toro Rosso. They're just 7 points behind Haas. They are on 47 points. They had two drivers, Timp and Kalon, both good racers. Kalon was consistent throughout the entire race, to be honest. He was able to keep within that top 5 for the majority of the race. In qualifying, he didn't get a brilliant result. He actually started in 16th, so he did do a very good job to gain that time. Obviously, pit strategy does play into the hands of your end result, and he was able to pit at the right time, and he came out at the right time on the right tire strategy, and he also put the lap times in. So, in your experience, when you pit, do you tend to push after you've pit, or do you just try and set very consistent lap times to try and optimize your strategy? So if you're in Kalon's position, you've started at the back, and you need to get forwards, how would you negotiate that?
Well, if you're Kalon and you're doing an undercut, you want to particularly push on your in lap and your out lap. And then if you feel like your tyres have it, you really want to push after your outlap. You want to get as much of those tyres as possible without completely destroying them. Yeah, if you're doing the undercut, you want to gain as much on those who haven't pitted yet, and so you can maybe try and get ahead of them when they pit. So usually I'd say push for a few laps after a pit stop, but otherwise just be as consistent as possible. Because it's all good being fast, but if you're fast, slow, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. His teammate Timp, he came in third. He had a really good race. He was he was sort of in no man's land at the very end, but he was battling with Kalon, Wycom's non-runner, Mac, Failer, Marek, and RBK for the entire race. Basically, we had this group of cars from third all the way down to at one point it was all the way down to 12th, which was Afro. And we just had this group, and they were within the entire race pretty much up until lap 2020 or something. He was very, really, really good. I mean, the racing was very good. It was very clean. It was awesome to see some fantastic overtakes. If you want to have a look on the AOR website, that's apexonlineracing.com. Go over to the split, the PC split one, and we have an overtakes of the week section. Go and check it out because some of these overtakes are absolutely fantastic. You can also watch the live stream back if you like hearing in the talk show. But yeah, Tim got a really good result for Toro Rosso. Third and fourth means that they finished out of all the teams, they were the strongest team this weekend, and a very well deserved points for them guys. I mean, Tim started in third and finished in third. You'll be wondering if he thinks he could have got a little bit more with actually the top two drivers in qualifying ended up not finishing in the top two. In fact, they were both fairly low down. Raven, unfortunately, tired, and Marek, we've already said he finished down in eighth. Force India, they only had one driver today, which was Wycom's. Fizzy is in London for the esports event. Um, so what a race from Wycom's. A decent qualifying. He got sixth. He was only a tenth off the pace, or 1.5 tenths off the pace. So he was by no means slow. Yeah, he just results. He was able to claw his way from sixth all the way up to second. For a very long time, Wycombe stayed in sixth position. In fact, for the entirety of the first stint, Wycombe was in sixth position. All the action was happening ahead of him. He came in, he came out, he started to look at the other drivers in front of him battling. So we had Kalon non-runner battling a lot during the race. And, Wycombes was able to use those battles to his advantage. We saw occasionally Wycombes picking off a couple of drivers here and there. Saffzo, I'm sure you know what it's like when there's a battle ahead of you and you're waiting for that mistake to happen. Because normally when you're battling really close for the entire race, you're normally going to have a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact. And often it just pushes you wide a bit and you're able to get the inside. Do you think what Wycombes was doing and playing it safe and sick a good idea, and just pick off the positions as and when he needed them?
Yeah, that's a very good strategy for Wycombes. Just look at the battle, wait for a mistake, and then if they make a mistake, try as hard as you can to capitalize on it. And then if you are able to do that, just punish it as much as you can. Try and drive away from the one that's made a mistake, and just do that strategy over and over until there's like lonely people in front of you and there aren't really any battles happening. In which case, at that point, you either focus on consistency or trying to push to catch up to that person.
Yeah, I mean, I when I was racing, that's something I often did. If I felt I didn't quite have the pace or the ultimate pace to be able to overtake someone, I just stayed behind them and just waited for the opportunity. Like you say, it's a very safe strategy. You tend not to cause damage because obviously by battling, there's a chance that you're going to lose a front wing or something. We've already spoken about Fizzy. He obviously wasn't here. There's nothing to comment about. In fourth, we have Mercedes. They had Arox as their only driver this weekend. Um, Alex was doing pretty well, to be honest. He was always in the mix for the majority of the race, um, and he was always in this battle for. Basically, he was in the battle for the podium, as all the drivers were, up until sort of lap 20. Unfortunately, he ended up getting a DNF. We're not entirely sure of his issues. He either got a disconnect or he retired or whatever. But a shame for him. No points from Mercedes. They were looking so strong last time with that third and fourth finish. Let's see if they can do any better in Bahrain. In fifth place we have Sauber. They're on 18 points. That's 36 behind Haas, the leaders. Sauber's got both Saubers got a solid result actually. Max and Fila, they were they they were very close throughout the whole race. They only ended up finishing a tenth, not even a tenth behind each other. Um, so really really close. Within the Sauber battle, there was actually a little bit of team orders. Now, we spoke about the team championship and team orders a little bit last season. In this particular occasion, Max was coming up behind. Oh, no, sorry, Failer was coming up behind Max with much better pace, better tires or fresher tires because this is after the first stop, and Max actually had a little bit of front wing damage. Um, basically, he just led his teammate past. Saffzo, if you were in that position where your teammate was really struggling, um, on like for whatever reason, whether it was tire related or car damage related, is that something you'd do? Just let your teammate past, or would you always try and maximize your own personal result?
If we're talking in the spectrum of I'm the one struggling, then when they come up behind me, I try and push for a lap, see what sort of pace I have. If I just think no, I can't keep up with them or anything, I just let them pass on the next lap. But if I'm behind the struggling teammate, then I stay behind for 1 or 2 laps, see if he speeds up at all. If he doesn't, then I try and get past.
So, did you tend to have any contact with your teammate over TeamSpeak or Discord or whatever to discuss your strategy, or was it fairly, or did have in the past have you sort of been very much to yourself and your teammate was sort of like just the other side of the garage or someone you may or may not have got on with?
Uh, we didn't like not get on with each other. We just didn't really talk much. Yeah, yeah. It was very sort of. It's hard to put in the way. It was a very sort of
Is a
uh,
neutral
common
teammate?
sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
neutral, common sense teammates. Sort of, if this sort of thing happens and this is the right thing to do, we'll do it. That sort of thing.
yeah. In my personal past experiences with Marco and stuff, we're obviously very good friends. Off track, so on track, we're also fairly close as well. If our pace was quite similar, we tended to have a little bit of chit chat amongst each other just to work out what the best result, because we wanted to get the best result not only for us but for the team. So if it was a case of you're holding up your teammates, you're obviously holding up yourself as well because you're sort of if by holding up your teammate, presumably you want to keep your position, so you're defending. It means drivers behind are closing in. It's not a nice position to be in. In P6, we have Renault. They're just 2 points behind Haas, 16 points in the championship. Um, we'll start with their weaker driver, or at least this weekend it was their weaker driver. It was Afro. He finished 12th, outside the points. He was really quick throughout the entire race. Again, he was just in this battle, and he couldn't seem to progress. Quite similar to Melbourne, he's just outside the points. He's almost there, but not quite. It is a bit of a shame for him because I think he probably thought he could have battled for points, especially after how close qualifying was. I mean, he is only 3/10 behind the pole leader, and he's starting ninth. So, so you know, Yeah, he'll be a bit disappointed about. Hopefully, Bahrain he'll be able to make some inroads and start gaining points for Renault in his championship. Their other driver, non-runner, another solid result from non-runner. He rather than finishing seventh, he finished fifth, so he gained a couple of positions on where he finished in Australia. Um, Him and Kalon had the most incredible battle at the end of the race. From lap 1 until lap 23, me and King Kojak just saw this incredible amount of battling throughout the whole race. We had there's so many battles, we couldn't focus on all of them, and we couldn't talk about all of them, and we definitely didn't see all the battles. Non-runner, it was going a little bit sour on lap 23, and we only had an extra few laps, as we had 28 laps in this race. And we only had an extra few laps. Non-runner was catching up with Kalon at the time, and then Kalon made a bit of a mistake. He got a little bit of he got like a half spin, so he was about 3 seconds ahead, and then that gap went down to under a second. So on lap 27, non-runner was had DRS to close into Kalon, wasn't able to make a move, and then on that last lap, non-runner was so close to the Toro Rosso driver. Unfortunately for non-runner, I think his wings might have been running just a little bit too high because he didn't quite have the straight line speed to catch up with Kalon. So he ended up finishing fifth rather than fourth, but it's going to give him so much confidence into the next race. Saffzo, when you get a good result, I know for me, it was always nice having a good result. It makes you feel better going into the next race. For you, a good result in qualifying or in the race, does that help you? Would you say for the next race, do you feel like your self belief is that you can improve on whatever you've done the round before?
Yeah, obviously, getting a good result for me, definitely made me feel better about the next race. It gave me that sort of buzz of, oh, I might well do, I might do well the next round as well. And it's like, oh, I kind of like this. But yeah, no, it definitely gives you a bit of a confidence boost most of the time. And sometimes it can even improve a result compared to not being in a good mood from the last race. So if you finish 12th in the race, it might be kind of like, that race didn't go well, and you might finish outside the points again and again and again. But if you finish well within the points, like None Runner did in China, then you might be kind of like, okay, that went well. Okay, maybe we could do well, and then you get into the points again and again and again, so on and so forth. So yeah, more confidence can get you better results, but you need to make sure not to get cocky from a good result. That's a very big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what a lot of drivers sort of not tend to do. It's what a lot of drivers make the mistake of doing sometimes, especially if they've got a couple of really good results. If you've got, two wins in your back pocket from, a couple of rounds in a row, think, you know what, I'm just walking over it. You start doing slightly less practice because you think you can get away with it. You start, making more mistakes in qualifying because you feel that you have to perform because otherwise, those results sort of start to count for nothing. But like you said, it is good having a good result. Obviously, when you get points in AOR, being such a competitive league, I'm sure for you, just getting points and stuff was such a big boost just to be able to, really catapult yourself up the field, and it makes you believe that you can get into the top 10, and once you done it once, you can do it again. In P7 we have Ferrari. A really disappointing day actually for Ferrari. Randrop unfortunately was not able to attend. He got a lot of Ferrari's points last time out. In fact, he got all of Ferrari's points last time out, so he got 8 points, finishing sixth. Ryko Gordon, um, he's going to be disappointed. He qualified in eighth position, um, so he was definitely looking good, but he was 2/10 off pole. Arguably he had the pace for pole position as all of these guys did today, to be honest. And he's just going to be very disappointed that he fell from eighth all the way down the back. Um, he ended up having to pit early. He just didn't really recover. He was a little bit like Demon. He sort of was for quite a while in no man's land, and then your drivers suddenly start to come back towards the end. Unfortunately, he didn't. He finished 14th. a whole minute behind the leader. He did get the fastest lap time. That was a 1:33.7. But there's not much to say about his race. He'd be disappointed, and he was never really in contention for points. So, yeah, not much to say about his race, unfortunately. In P8, we have Red Bull. Red Bull scored. They got their team and their drivers off to a fairly decent start. RBK scored all their points this weekend. He ended up getting 2 points for Red Bull. He finished ninth place. RBK had a mediocre qualifying, finished outside the top 10 in 11th. It was still very close. He was half a second behind pole. But to be honest, I think he'll be pleased just by moving up forwards in the grid. Saffzo, you know, it's like you start in a okay position, but if you move forwards, that's basically, at least for me when I was racing, as long as I moved forwards, it was good. Um, I don't know if that's how you always felt about a race, regardless of the result you got in the end.
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, I much prefer to get a pretty mediocre qualifying and climb up to good points in the race than getting a sort of ninth place in qualifying and ninth place in the race, because it just doesn't really feel like I've progressed. It just feels like, okay, I started there, I finished there. It's just kind of meh. But if you make progress from a mediocre qualifying position, you actually get decent points. That's a much, much more rewarding feeling, even if you feel like you're better in qualifying. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, yeah, like you say, when you finish where you start, it's very much a kind of you just feel like it's a little bit of a waste of time, because normally, if that's the case, you're also in a bit of no man's land. What normally means your race can be a bit boring. Um, However, RBK's teammate is Michael X99. He finished 13th. Um, Similar to last time, really. Michael just didn't quite. He didn't quite get off the mark. He was. I mean, it wasn't that he was slow. He just never really got. He never really got anywhere. His qualifying was okay. He was in 15th place. I mean, he was. I say his qualifying was okay. He started in 15th. He was only 6 tenths behind the pole sitter. He was one place ahead of Kalon, and Kalon proved that you can really catapult yourself upfield, because he finished in fourth. Michael wasn't able to do that. He finished 20 seconds behind his nearest rival in 12th. He was just never really there, to be honest, was Michael. He did give it a go. So, it'll be a shame. He'll be disappointed. He'll be hoping for more in Bahrain for sure. On to P9 now. We have McLaren. They have one single point from this race. AOR Demon scored that point. His race was quite odd because he started on the soft compound tyres and he went very, very long. Um, he said in his post race report he was just trying to keep it clean, and he certainly did that. Um, he ended up going a very long way into the race. I think he pitted on about lap 17 and went on to the super soft tyres and was just able to have good pace at the end to get 10th place. Um, 10th is always, if you're outside the point, I mean, he started 14th, so to get at least 1 point, I think he'd be pleased with that. He was able to climb 4 places. Um, so he's going to be pleased with that. Safzo, when you've started outside the point and you get 1 point, how do you feel? Do you always feel a bit frustrated that you couldn't get more points, or do you feel that you've achieved 1 point for the week?
I think it very much depends on the. Pardon me. I think it depends on the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship a bit. Like, if you're very strong in the Drivers' Constructors and you know you're a good driver,
Sure.
um, if you start outside the points and get 1 point, you're going to feel very disappointed, very frustrated. Uh, so, yeah, it might be that kind of feeling. But if you're like McLaren this season, so this is their first point this season, so I think starting 14th and getting a point, but not getting any points from Australia, I think that they should be satisfied with that. That's that's better than no points. And Slick, his teammate was in 11th, so even if Demon had a crash or something, Slick would be there to take the points as well. So I think they should be satisfied with their result in China.
Yeah, absolutely. From the brief look, really McLaren and this battle in the constructors for 8th, 9th, and 10th. Although I do think the team we're going to come on to next, I do feel has a lot of potential. Um, yeah, I think I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what McLaren can do. Demon he's a quick driver, definitely, but he is not ultra quick. He's actually qualified 14th both in both his races so far. Um, so I don't know, seemingly he's just around that sort of pace. Um, but it's his first season in AOR for a while, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do in the coming races. In 10th place, we have Williams. Wow, what a disappointing result for them. Well, let's start off with Kez. He had a no-show. I say a no-show. He's in the esports event, so he was not able to participate in this race. So we look forward to seeing him next time out. Last time he obviously got that DNF, which he'll be disappointed with. Raven, gosh, he was absolutely gutted. He qualified on pole. He set the fastest lap first, I think. Um, although Marek ended up starting the same grid slot as him, um, which didn't actually affect Raven because at least Raven had his car on the ground, whereas Marek didn't. Fortunately for Raven, his steering wheel disconnected. Or no, he got no force feedback. So what he had to do, he had to pit in very early, like lap 5 or something. And he had to disconnect and reconnect his steering wheel. And then he retired. He couldn't continue with no force feedback. I gotta say, I'm gutted for Raven. He was so fast. Um, yeah, it is just gutting. He finished 15th. Did Raven 2 laps behind the leader, but that was only because his car was being controlled by AI. He wouldn't have finished 15th if his car wasn't controlled by AI. He did have the points and the pace, I believe, for win today. And with Danny starting down in 4th, um, really, it's just he'd just be really disappointed because he really had good pace. Unfortunately, like we said at the beginning, the top two with their issues with their grid slot, this was caused because they had the same pole. Um, but they ended up pretty much being nowhere from the beginning of the race, so they never really had the chance to fight for the lead. Saffzo, you got to feel for Raven. He had a disconnect last time out. Um, this time he hasn't been able to finish the race. Have you had a string of bad luck like this? How does it feel, and how have you coped with it?
Well, I actually had a very similar thing in season 13 China where my controller wouldn't actually connect before the race, so I couldn't actually start it. And midway through, I was able to connect the controller. I was already in a thing. I was absolutely gutted. Literally, I was just like, I, I couldn't believe it at the time. I've had strings of bad luck also outside of AOR, and it is genuinely horrible to go through, especially if you're as quick as Raven. I'm not as quick as him. I can admit that now. He is so much quicker, but
Sure.
having a string of bad luck is literally one of the worst things you can experience. It is so gut wrenching if you have a bad performance and you know you could do so much better.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these guys, you put so many hours in. I mean, it's almost like, if you're one of the top guys and you put a lot of hours, it is like a part-time job, basically. Practice for AOR is like having a part-time job because you really do need to practice. Otherwise, you just become nowhere. And Raven clearly did put a lot of practice in. and through no fault of his own, he just wasn't able to capitalize on it. Me and King Kodiak were talking about bad luck in the games, sort of being like engine failures or mechanical problems with your cars in real with Formula One cars in real life. Sometimes you have a string of bad luck. Sometimes you have a string of good luck. Um, because other drivers in front of you have been unlucky. That's very similar to this race, really. Raven and Marek were both unlucky starting on the same grid slot, which is why Timp and Danny were able to capitalize. That's been it now. We've looked through the whole grid. That's the 16 drivers we had today. We're going to look forward now to the Bahrain Grand Prix. It is one of my personal favorite tracks. I used to really excel in Bahrain. It used to be a very strong track for me. As a driver, how do you find it, Saffzo? They're going to have some real challenges. Turn 9 springs to mind. What are your thoughts on the next race?
Yeah, Bahrain. With the old games, it was actually possibly my favourite track to drive. I was very, very strong at Bahrain, had very, very good pace. Yeah, it was just such a genuinely enjoyable track to drive. But with the new games, I just can't really connect to it. But it's not quite as punishing in China, but if you get something wrong, you really can lose quite a few tenths in qualifying. But yeah, it's still a nice track to drive. But for me personally, I just haven't really been able to connect to it. So these guys probably do because of the amount of practice they put in. Obviously turn 9, that's a very, very tricky braking zone. I'm expecting to see a lot of lockups there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, actually, I haven't been able to have the same connection in Bahrain as I have in previous games. I still love the track. It's quite a fun layout. It's almost like a big go-kart track because it has quite a few straights, which you would like in go-karts, but it also has some really tricky technical sections which you need to get perfect. Turn 1, turn 9, turn 10 as well, actually. You know how difficult it is to get a really good exit off there. You need to get the last couple of corners right. It's like you said, it's so easy to make mistakes. One lockup in turn 9 is just going to destroy your qualifying lap. So yeah, it is very tough. We're going to be racing around Bahrain again, 28 laps. I know we're certainly going to be looking forward to it in commentary next week. Safso, I'm sure it'll be a fun race to watch again. Um, what are your predictions in terms of drivers here? From what you've seen so far, who do you think is going to be quick? Do you think we're going to get the usual podiums, or do you think we're going to get some surprises?
To be honest, I'm expecting a few couple of surprises, but I think it's going to be quite similar to the China qualifying. I think it's going in terms of the battle of pole. I'm calling a battle between Formula Danny, ACR Raven, and Wycoms. I think that's going to be the battle for pole because I know Wycoms is very, very strong at Bahrain, usually
Yeah.
from having raced for them. In terms of the lower top 10, I'm expecting Afro to get a top 10 because he was battling for pole if I remember correctly in Bahrain last season, so I'm expecting
Yes.
him to get sort of mid-table and top 10, maybe lower top 10 if everyone else is a bit quicker. Ryko Gordon, I think he could get a bit higher up because obviously he's got fastest lap in both of the first two races, so I'm expecting him to get stuck in there. Hopefully, because he really does need some better performances. He's got fastest lap. He definitely has the pace for more. So, yeah, I think he has the potential for good pace in Bahrain. And then outside the top 10, I'm expecting a sort of battle between RBK, Nunrunner, Slick, and maybe Michael, because I think Michael's really struggled to adjust to this new sort of era of AOR, because last season he won Split 2 on F1 2016, this is Split 1 of F1 2017, it's a whole different experience. So, but I think he is slowly getting more and more adjusted, so if he can get inside the top 10, I will be impressed. Yeah, that's my predictions for qualifying for the race. I'm really not sure who to call for the podium, because that could really be quite mashed up, especially with how close China was.
Sure.
I,
Sure.
I, 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 I genuinely can't predict anything for Bahrain, especially with the amount of things that can happen. So obviously, the turn 9 lockup that can cause a lot of incidents. The DRS zones, there could be a lot of overtakes with that. So yeah, I'm expecting a lot of overtakes, a lot of action, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean with the jump from split 2 to 1 back in the day in season 7 and 8. I was in split 2. Made the jump to split 1 for season 9, and I was quite lucky actually. I had Marco as my teammate, and we were quick, and I was fairly quick out the block. Possibly partly because F1 2014, as it was at the time, really did suit my driving style. You're right, Afro was battling for pole last time. The pole time was set by F Donso, and he got a 1 minute 30 black. Um, Afro did get a podium last time out. He came third behind Nick B and Berg von Trips. I think Afro is going to be really looking forward to Bahrain because he's the only driver who's actually experienced a podium on this grid. So, from last season, that is. So I think his run of bad luck were with finishing 11th and 12th is going to end in Bahrain. And like you said, I think he's going to get a good result. That has been the review of China and preview of Bahrain. We hope you enjoyed it. My thanks goes to Saffzo. Again, giving us some driver insights into these tracks as you're one of the more current drivers. So thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.
And we will see you next time as we review Bahrain. Thank you and good night.